right? If you look at Bitcoiners, they keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And as you understand what that means, then you apply all of your resources, all of your mind, all of it. How do we keep this decentralized and secure? What is coming next? What's building on top of it? And you move your time away from the extractive system to the cooperative system, and it's just starting. So why I love both of you guys and so many of the other beautiful minds in this is they are unbuyable. You are unbuyable. You are building this, and it doesn't matter if Rockstar chooses to stay private. I'm public. It actually doesn't matter, but all of us matter because we are Bitcoin. We're defending it. We're building the path forward. So it's used as a medium of exchange. We are the network.
It is really interesting how we cooperate without being forced to fall into certain structure. It's like very organic. And what Jeff is saying about most people not realizing how profound this technology is, I would compare it to that whole shift with Copernicus, where you had models where Earth is the center of the universe, and then it's like not even center of solar system. But we as humans really are truth-seeking machine, and we get born into certain systems and then spend our lifetime trying to get out of those systems towards a better one, like the one that we helped build. And you even now have people who look at money as a function of state, right? While us that are part of this revolution that Bitcoin is, have realized that truth, that money should be separate from the state. And once that happens, we can really usher a new golden age. And it will be that size of a shift from Earth is the center of universe towards, hey, let's recognize first solar system, then galaxies, then everything else. And then we have a model that's much closer to the truth.
Greetings and salutations, my fellow plebs. My name is Walker, and this is the Bitcoin Podcast. The Bitcoin time chain is 870121, and the value of one Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin. Today's episode is Bitcoin Talk, where I talk with my guests about Bitcoin and whatever else comes up. Today, we have two of my absolutely favorite people, Jeff Booth and my uncle Rockstar. This was an impromptu Nostr-only live stream, and if you want to watch this show live in the future, you can only do that on Nostr. It's also the first time Rockstar and Jeff have ever done a recorded conversation together, and I'm honestly honored that I was able to host it because I respect the heck out of both of these guys. We get into a lot in this episode, including number go up versus freedom go up, the Bitcoin strategic reserve, and whether or not that'll actually save fiat, Bitcoin repricing the world, inflation versus deflation, open source development, how to start living in a Bitcoin world right now, life philosophy, and a whole lot more. Before we dive in, do me a favor and subscribe to the Bitcoin Podcast wherever you're watching or listening. Check out bitcoinpodcast.net for episodes and additional resources. Head to the show notes to grab a discount link for my sponsor Bitbox, or go directly to bitbox.swiss/Walker and use the promo code Walker to get your 5% off the fully open source Bitcoin only Bitbox02 hardware wallet. Send an email to hello@bitcoinpodcast.net if you have feedback or if you're interested in sponsoring the Bitcoin Podcast. And if you find this show valuable, consider giving it a zap on Nostr or a boost on Fountain to give value back. I really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into this Bitcoin talk with Jeff Booth and Uncle Rockstar. We are apparently live. I'm going to check the old zap.stream. I'm still very much a newbie at this, but I think I'm slowly getting a little better, getting a little more comfortable on the live stream setup here. Luckily, zap.stream honestly makes it so dang easy. It's another beautiful Nostr tool that I think is highly underutilized right now.
Jeff, I was just telling Walker that we really need to pump him up a little bit, since he is a hub, communications hub for all of us on Nostr, and the way he does these streams that are Nostr-only and brings community together is great. You agree?
Completely agree. Yeah, not only did he come up with the Nostrich, but now he's now he's leading the charge in Nostr-only. So really well done.
You guys
And
are going to make
birds
me blush.
agree?
Come on.
No, but by the end of this episode, you will be all red. But I think it will be great when we have nature with Jeff, we have cyberspace with me, so we have all the bases covered.
It's perfect, really. All right, I'm trying to blast this link out right now. Let's see, I may have just sent it a couple of times. We shall find out when I go here on the side. All right, I did in fact blast it out a couple of times, but that's good. The more the merrier, right?
Yep.
You know, I've been kind of amazed because if you listen to the naysayers talk, you would believe that perhaps there weren't too many active people on Nostr, but it is incredible. You can push out a link, and we've got 14 people in here already. I have a feeling that number is going to swell significantly. But, you know, the Nostriches just like to, they like to have fun and they like to engage in nice conversations. And Sarah of Zap.Cooking, thank you for being such a regular listener to these streams. It's nice to have you here. And for anyone who hasn't checked out Zap.Cooking, it is awesome. You can find great recipes and post recipes and get zapped Bitcoin for them. How wonderful is that? All
Very
right.
wonderful.
And we just jumped up to 77 viewers like that. So that's super nice. Well, guys, you know, we'll go into this with a slow burn so that we don't say too many incredibly insightful things before more folks have joined, but it's a treat to have you both here. You were just saying backstage that while you guys have obviously talked many times, been on calls many times, this is the first recorded session of you two together, which is kind of amazing.
You're a first, Walker.
Well, hey, you know, I think I knew I could, you know, tempt you both with the Nostr-only live stream. I figured it was a good carrot there. So
yeah, it's funny because how close we are, right? And for a long time now between Rockstar and I, and to first time doing a podcast together, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and from my side as well, because some of those conversations we had, Jeff, I do wish they were recorded, because some of the lessons taken from, you know, hearing about your journey and paths you took, paths you didn't take, they have been very impactful for me. And there is also the fact that I don't know, Walker, if you saw my message on the latest reply of Jeff he posted on the whole Paid in Bitcoin documentary. Did you see that one, Walker?
I've not seen it. Could you regale us?
Yeah. So Jeff is also one of those people that all the long form documentaries that come out with me and the work I'm doing in open source community and with BTC Pay server, he is a big promoter, and then watches those documentaries, gives me feedback. And I said in reply to his post about the latest one, Paid in Bitcoin, how he really is a pillar in community, because I am very happy to be one of many that Jeff silently supports. And again, those conversations mean a lot as you progress through this journey that Bitcoin is. So I'm actually really looking forward to, as I say, Jeff, like we had many conversations. There were great conclusions. Now this one is public, so let's see how this one goes, and if we manage to, you know, make few aha moments for people watching this.
Awesome.
You know, I wanted to, it felt like a good day to have this kind of a conversation, because obviously Bitcoin is pumping right now. You know, we have a lot of NGU at the moment. I don't think to anyone, like not to anyone's surprise, really, right? This is all kind of expected to happen, but whenever it does happen, I haven't been around that long. This is really just, so this will be the fourth year, like since 2020 I started, so I really haven't even gotten a full cycle. Like I don't know the feeling of these things, but I mean, it feels pretty good. I think a lot of people who started stacking around, 2021, 2020, like myself, or 2022, anytime since 2020, you're starting to feel pretty great, right? You're a bit euphoric, like, see, yes, I was right. Yes, this feels so good after a long bear market. But at the same time, I think it's an important time to also reflect on, let's say, the larger context of things, and not just the number go up, but the freedom go up. And the fact that, yes, this is great to see. There's a lot of hype around Bitcoin strategic reserve, around, nation state competition for it, all these things. But there's also a lot of projects that are happening, perhaps, that don't get nearly this sort of attention as a tweet about, breaking, a new nation state is going to announce a Bitcoin strategy in the next 48 hours. It doesn't get quite the same hype. And so I wanted to bring you guys here to just kind of to give a little perspective. And I mean, maybe a good place to start off is just kind of the question around number go up, FGU, freedom go up, versus NGU, number go up. Do you think that that the number go up leads to the freedom go up? As in, does the store of value increasing, does that narrative strengthening lead ultimately to more freedom go up? Does it lead to a stronger network, which then allows Bitcoin to stay decentralized and secure, which ultimately allows for more incredible things to be built on top of it? Or is there a risk of the number go up vibe, let's say, clouding the potential of some of the incredible freedom tech that's being built on top of this, or even moving us more towards potentially captured instances of coins, let's say, if that makes sense?
Do you want to take that first, sir?
Sure. I even recently was on Twitter Spaces for a Bitcoin conference in Mina, and we're really excited for that event. You're coming as well, Jeff, right?
I am.
Yeah, so we will have some times together. But I said that for me, it was always about freedom go up, because if Bitcoin ends up being another way for rich to get richer, then we have failed from my point of view. And it's all about reforming money and separating it from the state. And I think we're doing a pretty good job when it comes to that, because you look at the real value in Bitcoin is connections that you make, and these small communities that we establish where you can discuss and work on topics that are extremely important for the future with way less noise. If there was no Bitcoin, I wouldn't be connected with you, Walker, and then I wouldn't be on Nostr. And what I always now see on Nostr is the posts that I make, they may not have as much, likes and retweets or reposts. Now they're called on X, but conversation that happens there is way more engaging, way more genuine. It's away from the mainstream narrative that you see on X and other, like, oh, who will President Trump select in his cabinet, and that type of discussions. So for me, it's definitely always about freedom go up, and I think we will be successful, but it also depends on us. All of us that Bitcoin has empowered over last decade plus, what is it that we will do? And that's the main question for me.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to tackle this so Bitcoin is the most important discovery that humans have ever discovered, um, up to now, and that could easily, if somebody doesn't understand it deep enough, it could sound like no way. But people who do understand it understand why. And the why is this, at least in my fractal view of what's happening. we've always, for 5,000 years, we've always lived in an extractive economy. Always. We would invade other lands to be able to steal their gold or resources and enslave other people. And if we had the biggest army, we could do that and get away with it. And so the world always looked like that. Sun never sets on the British Empire was that. We would go to war over and over as that would break down throughout history to be able to reset financial systems, to essentially be able to capture money, to be able to impose our rules on other people. So that has led to everything that we take for granted today. It's also led to some of the positive that we take for granted today. And the winners of those wars and the winners of those systems have created, at least in the early stages of that, before it breaks down, they've created everything we take for granted. So that system now, we do that extraction through a monetary system. That if you're closer to the top of that extraction, you're winning. And the truth is, you're actually not really winning, because your soul is being destroyed by it, because it's based on extraction. But you think you're winning versus a whole bunch of other people who are losing. And so most people on the planet today don't know that they're living from within that system. And Bitcoin changes that to a system of cooperation. And it imposes cooperation. What as you go deeper and deeper in Bitcoin, what people feel in Bitcoin, the closeness and them changing, is a system based on cooperation, that every single person wins by more people entering. Now, most people don't know what I just described there. Right? The world's always been deflationary. And that means the free market has always been deflationary. And that means everything we do trading with each other all over the world should flow to 8 billion people. But we've never had a vehicle to allow it to flow to 8 billion people. And why? Because money is subordinate to laws. And if you could control money, you control everything else. If you could control money and you had 1 million people on your system, then you steal from 1 million people slowly. If you can control money and you have 8 billion people on your system, you're stealing from 8 billion people at different rates around the world. And so Bitcoin doesn't care, right, that I'm here, that Rockstar's here, that you're. Every 10 minutes, it's imposing. In fact, one of the things that I think about is for people who are so far out of touch, they're living in the matrix that's extracting from them. Instead of saying Bitcoin, just say, what would a decentralized secure protocol that you couldn't change, that couldn't be co-opted, that was bounded by energy, look like? And if you're in one system, measuring from the system where all of the human abundance, all of the productivity gains are flowing to you through 8 billion people eventually moving to the system, it looks like something you can't even, it's very hard for me to even explain what that looks like, because it means all the 7.5 billion people that are trapped in the extractive system and they're slaves to it, we unlock their minds and deflation is faster in service of all of us. It's so big a deal. But as you enter Bitcoin, I kind of think of myself entering, and I sent a thank you note to all the cryptographers and all of the people who knew this way before me and who were fighting for this way before me, knowing how important this was. Now, I'm not just thanking Satoshi. I'm thanking all of the people who came up with shots on net that failed, that then inspired Satoshi to create the thing that freed all of us. So I'm talking about all of the human progress, and that's actually why I'm so bullish on where we're going on this. Because as you go down this rabbit hole, if you start as a trader or in shitcoins or in whatever fractal you're looking through your world from, as you go deeper and deeper, and some people stay stuck at a level for a long time. They get burned, they get rug pulled in something for a long time because they're still playing the rules of the other game. And but this is a game based on cooperation, and as you go deeper and deeper, and you understand the magnitude of what that is, you never will go back. And once you never go up a step, right? If you look at Bitcoiners, they keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, and as you understand what that means, then you apply all of your resources, all of your mind, all of the how do we keep this decentralized and secure? What is coming next? What's building on top of it? And you move your time away from the extractive system to the cooperative system, and it's just starting. So why I love both of you guys and so many of the other beautiful minds in this is they are unbuyable. You are unbuyable. You are building this, and it doesn't matter. Rockstar chooses to stay a NIM or private. I'm public. It actually doesn't matter, but all of us matter because we are Bitcoin. We're defending it. We're building the path forward. So it's used as a medium of exchange. We are the network.
If you like everything open source, then you need to go to bitbox.swiss/walker and use the promo code walker for 5% off the fully open source, easy to use Bitcoin only Bitbox O2 hardware wallet. Then get your Bitcoin off the exchange and into your own self-custody. The fiat value of Bitcoin is absolutely ripping, and soon your stack will be worth a heck of a lot more in that fiat value than it is today. So now is the perfect time to make sure you have your security locked down tight with a Bitbox. And I really cannot emphasize this enough, but the Bitbox O2 is easy as hell to use. Whether you're brand new to Bitcoin, it's your first time setting up a hardware wallet and you're understandably a little bit nervous, or you are a well-seasoned psychopath. Again, the Bitbox O2 is Bitcoin only, and it is fully open source. You can go to their GitHub and verify that for yourself. There's no need to trust me or trust Bitbox. When you go to bitbox.swiss/walker and use the promo code walker, not only do you get 5% off, but you also help support this podcast. So seriously, thank you.
Yeah, if I can expand on that, it is really interesting how we cooperate without being forced to fall into certain structure. It's like very organic. And what Jeff is saying about most people not realizing how profound this technology is, I would compare it to that whole shift with Copernicus, where you had models where Earth is the center of the universe, and then it's like not even center of solar system. But we as humans really are truth-seeking machine, and we get born into certain systems and then spend our lifetime trying to get out of those systems towards a better one, like the one that we helped build. And you even now have people who look at money as a function of state, right? While us that are part of this revolution that Bitcoin is have realized that truth, that money should be separate from the state. And once that happens, we can really usher a new golden age. And it will be that size of a shift from, oh, Earth is a center of universe, towards, hey, let's recognize first solar system, then galaxies, then everything else. And then we have a model that's much closer to the truth.
Yeah, Rockstar, just playing on that. The printing press, which was created out of somebody's brain, unlocked an ability to share information and error correct on that information. So somebody would say something, and then everyone else would error correct it. And that truth got better and better. And we saw things, we found things. And that only unlocked a tiny fragment of humanity. And that tiny fragment that it unlocked, call it 500 million people, created everything that you've seen in the last call it 300 years, and the rate of progress, and 400 years, and the rate of progress. It created the Age of Enlightenment. It created all of these things that then are being lost again because of broken money, because it consolidates to very few people making the decisions. And we are about to break that open to 8 billion people. And it doesn't take, but we're not waiting. My life looks like I just described. I'm living that life every day, and nobody has to wait. No, it's an open network. You just have to move your time away from the extractive system to the cooperative one, and you're a part of the new network.
You know, Jeff, something you mentioned earlier, and by the way, it's great talking with you too, because I love that you can riff back and forth, and I can just sit back and drink from the fountain of both of your wisdom. But, you know, you mentioned something earlier about Bitcoiners can't be bought, right? Once you're deep enough down that path, you can't really be bought. And I think there's multiple facets to that, which is okay, maybe ideologically, like in terms of your ethos, you've reached a point where you won't allow yourself to be bought. But economically also, you are less susceptible to, let's say, the whims of fiat being thrown in your face, because you have a better way to store your economic energy. And I'm just kind of, you know, curious, because you also mentioned, okay, moving your time towards this system, moving your energy toward it. I think it's really difficult for a lot of people who are still stuck in this fiat mentality of, I'm on this hamster wheel and I've just got to keep running a little bit faster, and then I can catch a breather. Then I can start to think. I think it's really hard for them to take a step back, understandably so, and to say, okay, wow, I can make a change. Like I can actually just do this. American Hodl, I'll call him Hodl because that's, you know, his preferred name. But American Hodl was saying the other day, he's like, you can just go out and do things. You can just do shit. You don't have to ask for permission. You don't have to wait. But how do you actually, I mean, is that just a choice everybody needs to make for themselves? Is it something that we as Bitcoiners have any sort of say in helping people along? I think a lot of Bitcoiners, when you get far enough down the rabbit hole, you sort of get tired of trying to orange pill people, quote, and, you know, being rejected time and time again when you're just trying to give them good information. So do people just need to realize that another system exists and then it's up to them? Or is there something Bitcoiners can do to push them? Or does it have to be, let's say, do they have to push themselves? Do they have to run toward it? Is there just nothing we can do besides try to live our lives and be an example for how things can be different?
I'll riff on that for a second. If you walked down the street and you saw love in every single person around you, you saw genuine love, that was your perspective. And somebody else walked down the street and saw fear around you, would you be living two different experiences? Their experience would be just as true for them as yours would be for you, and you would see two different worlds manifest out of that thought. So if that's true, and we know that's true, then the world is actually not as we think it is. It's a mirror of our version of the world, and everybody's mirror is different. And so if you had your mirror of the world, even though it's true for you, and you go and impose your mirror on somebody else, it doesn't work. It never works. It pushes that person away. The only way you can, but if you just stand in your own power, your own genius, right, and are listening and looking at the world and just feeding back, am I living my most integral life? Not worrying about what other people do. I think at least people are inspired by that, and they start to wonder why. Because when people say orange pill, for me, when somebody says I'm orange pilling somebody, that's an ego thing. I want to be the person who changed that. I want to be the person who matters to them. And if you just think about this path, I could never name all of the people who were responsible to orange pill me, because I don't even know when I saw it, how I saw it, everything else. But I'm like, I have the most gratitude for a bunch of people who contributed to this network that I could never thank personally.
I think that's a very well said. Rockstar, did you want to jump in there too?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in and say that it's very interesting that we're following up the episode with American Huddle and Eric Kaysen, where you have Eric Kaysen ranting and yelling about dumbasses who, if only you listen to Bitcoiners, you'll be twice as rich in a week. And I love Eric. He's one of my favorite people in
Amen.
Bitcoin, my brother. But that was a tough love episode, and now you have this love episode with me and Jeff. That we'll go with, like, yeah, this is one of the things I would credit Jeff with, is he made me realize that it's all about not even persuading people, but living the best version of your own life. And then if people come to you and ask, hey, how come you as a developer have accomplished this? Because looking back at 15 years, I am, any immigrant developer to US can emulate my journey. It's just, I can tell those little moments or paths that I have taken and speak from experience of what does it take to come to the point where you're like, okay, I have achieved my American dream and I get to be free. And then also what comes after that. Because when we again talk about people that are trapped in fiat system, I don't even, lately I've been thinking a lot about it, and I don't even see that's that malicious. It's more that we do not have technology to really, like, we didn't have technology to really support people, because fiat banking was something that was as Bitcoin invented, and it served to a certain point. But now we have a better technology, and we should move to better technology so that we can service and help more people. Because as population is growing, also complexity increases, and we need to have better technology, better connections, better ways of communicating with each other, serving each other. Like, imagine this podcast in old world where we all need to come to a studio and like my people talk with your people. Is just so much harder to organize. And look at us, like, we are organized like this. We're streaming on Nostr. People are zapping. We're zapping people, talking all together. So it's just a matter of better technology. And then, as Jeff says, remove as much ego as you can and focus on getting to the truth. Because to me, that's really what we are here for as conscious creatures. Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, I think, by the way, just picking up on that, what you just said, Rockstar, I think by imposing a system of honesty on the world, and I don't look at it as technology, I look at it as protocol, right? You could, and the reason why I say protocol is there isn't another technology that can beat this. It's a protocol, and protocols win everything. And protocols build in layers. But there's still tons of people stuck trying to trade around shitcoins that are going to zero because they think of it as technology. And this is a protocol that is imposing an energy-based, decentralized, secure system on the world. And if you're pricing from that energy-based, decentralized, secure system in the world, all prices are falling forever. If you're pricing from if you're converting that to a piece of paper, you'll think Bitcoin's going up and all prices are going up. And it's just a matter of objective. It's just a matter of perspective, which version that you're seeing it. And that version will be true for you. But the problem with the version of the price going up is it centralizes Bitcoin in layer 2. It has to centralize Bitcoin in layer 2 because we've always, for 5,000 years, lived in an extractive system where we think prices are naturally going up, and they're not. So in other words, if that has always happened, and there's many people that before us who also knew, but they couldn't stop it, then our incentives around a system that is stealing from us to steal from us must be really high, right? We will naturally fall into that trap. If we fall into that trap, and it's only, I've said this many times, I just think it should become a meme. If Bitcoin is not a medium of exchange, it fails as a store of value, period. It also fails as freedom tech. It also fails as everything else because the centralized system that we make stronger through our actions of trying to price Bitcoin in the centralized system, fiat, is extracting wealth at an exponential rate to stop the deflation. If we are part of that, then Bitcoin will fail. It's inevitable. It won't fail. Now I'm going to stop there. It won't fail because there's too many people who already know what I just described. And there's too many, I spend my time there all the time, Rockstar does too. And if you see what's coming to make it easier and interoperable across these things to make it an experience, a medium of exchange, you understand how many people are doing that and how fast that's growing. You're not really worried about that risk. But for people that aren't as deep as this, that is the risk. And every currency forever has always failed for the same reason. So we better be smarter this time.
Jeff, I want to get into with both of you guys kind of some of the things, because you are both extremely tapped into this in terms of what stuff is like really cool freedom tech that is being built, and either with Rockstar literally writing the code, or you yourself funding all these incredible initiatives. You guys are as tapped in as anyone. Before we get into that, I do want to ask something just about, we've heard all this Bitcoin strategic reserve talk, right? And you're mentioning every fiat currency always fails. And a question that I struggle with is, because yes, I agree, that is a objective fact, right? Every fiat currency always fails. Now, going forward, if the US or any other country that currently prints its own fiat starts accumulating Bitcoin, starts accumulating a strategic reserve, stockpile, whatever you want to call it, does that potentially prevent that currency from failing? Does it give it enough of either a check on its unmitigated printing? Does it give it enough of a backstop? Does it somehow, does it ever stop a currency from failing? Or will the currency fail no matter what? And it's just a question of slowing down its death a little bit. Do you think that this whole idea of these strategic reserves is actually going to end up prolonging the life of these fiats that would have died sooner of natural causes? Or is there a different outcome that you see even, with the adoption of these strategic reserves? And I'm curious what both of you think on this, because it's something I've been thinking about a lot, and I don't really, I don't have a good answer for that.
Well, I can add my perspective there also, adding to what Jeff was saying. To me, it's all about that level of freedom that you have. If you're focused on number go up, that's just another form of slavery and chains. Like if you're now glued to the screen and looking at the price of Bitcoin going up, or then looking at the price of MicroStrategy stock going up, you can't do anything productive with your day. It's more, that's why I always insist with people that like stacking sats and staying humble, DCAing, that's what it's about. And then you allow that to be your segue into this community and doing the work within this community. And to answer your question on strategic stockpile, I do see it that way, is that if you look at what happened with El Salvador, where now they ended up with a balanced budget, I do think Bitcoin has that way, like you get invested in something that's closer to the truth, and then you're incentivized to align yourself and the way you live with the or like the best possible version that you can find and align with. And I honestly, like, I welcome those reserves, and I think they're necessary also for the transition in the future. When you say like fiat currencies are gonna, I don't know, die or disappear, or like that would, in my view, lead to chaos. And luckily we have Bitcoin to enable that transition. So I just see that it will be a gradual switch, and the longer we have to switch to Bitcoin standard and cooperative system rather than system that exploits people, the better we will all be.
Yeah, this is a really tough and nuanced question because there is no direct answer, right? To countries that go first will be richer than countries that go later. If those countries that go first then tried to consolidate Bitcoin, then close this, and everybody operated on top of call it the shitcoin, the fiat instrument on top of Bitcoin, if they were transacting on that, and then those countries would be incentive to reprice Bitcoin, right? And to keep operating their power because they had so much of the Bitcoin, and there would be a whole incentive model that would create, okay, let's do this. That would still be inflationary. And because of that, it would still eventually break, and it would not be the free market. So the only way that you could keep that going would be to remove individual rights and freedoms to continue it. I actually think right now that's what's happening at a higher level of abstraction.
Jeff was making too much sense, so they removed his internet connection.
Yeah. So can you hear me? Am I back? Okay. So I think what's happening at a higher level of abstraction is this. You have a whole bunch of technocrats that know what I'm talking about. That free market is deflationary, and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and all of these people that know this, against the globalists, and the technocrats just won with Trump. But it's now consolidating. So because if Elon Musk knows that the free market is deflationary, and he seems to, and if you A16Z and a whole bunch of other people that talk about this all the time, they're using my work, right, to be able to talk about this. And those people also are investing in shitcoins and not all in on Bitcoin. And what does it tell you? Like, it's pretty obvious. It's either one of two things. They know, and they're using a kind of fake freedom to centralize faster on their version of control, or they don't know. And I suspect Elon's smart enough to know. And so when I find a whole bunch of people now creating new heroes that are just faster centralization, and talking about those heroes of saving their lives through a different form of centralization, it feels like the same old trick that's been played before on humans over and over and over again. And there's too many people that are wise to it. And Bitcoin doesn't care. Like, so if they do that, Bitcoin will reprice all of them too. Does that make sense?
I think, no, it does make sense. Because again, it's interesting to look at, okay, El Salvador, Rockstar, you brought it up. they're an interesting example because they, of course, don't print their own fiat currency. In the US now, Jeff, as you mentioned, where we very much do print the world reserve currency, you do have a lot of technocrats who have gotten now into higher positions. Now, on the one hand, you look at that and you say, well, I'd rather have these technocrats than the career bureaucrats. At least these guys, know how to run a business. Granted, they're running a lot of those businesses off of massive government subsidies, et cetera. But okay, maybe that's at least a change in the right direction. But at the same time, you see the behavior of them, Jeff. I think this is what you're keying on here is that look at not just what they say, look at what they do, and look at where their money is. And the A16Zs of the world are a great example of that. But I'm curious to see what happens next if the U.S. actually and other countries do start trying to print fiat for any nation that can print their own fiat to acquire Bitcoin, because that starts to get very interesting. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on the NGU nation state adoption side, because while I find it interesting and I think it's a natural consequence, it's something that was always going to happen with Bitcoin. The question was just when and how quickly. What I want to talk to you guys a little bit about now, if you're game for it, is just kind of some of the things you are seeing, some of the things that you are building or helping to build, that you're working with, some of these projects that are actually delivering those solutions that allow Bitcoin to be used as a medium of exchange, whether that be, making layer 1 easier, whether that be layer 2 and, let's say layer 3. I'm not sure, Jeff, where you would classify FETI in terms of layers. I think that's, it could go either way there. But maybe, Jeff, I think what you've said about Bitcoin needs to be a medium of exchange, not just a store of value for it to actually win, I think is very important. And it's a part of the discussion that sometimes gets lost, especially when Bitcoin is pumping. Everybody's feeling like, they're new rich. And it's like, well, come on, let's just focus on the, the store of value NGU for now. But the medium of exchange is the freedom go upside. That is the FGU. Like, that's what allows you to make sure that you can still use Bitcoin in such a way that nobody can stop you from doing it, that it's not controlled in these massive honeypots. So can you guys talk a little bit about, and maybe Rockstar, because I know people were asking about the documentary. They were asking about some of the work you've been doing recently.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how you look at that and kind of what, I guess maybe more so what your mentality is with this kind of medium of exchange versus store of value as somebody who has been actively developing and committing code in the space for a lot longer than I've even been aware of Bitcoin?
No, I mean, for me, sats must flow. That's it. We must be able to send Bitcoin between individuals across the world, because what Jeff was saying, the way that I understand it is there are so many Jeff Boots around the world. There are so many rock stars, but the only difference between maybe those people and us is that proximity to money printer that we managed to establish over the course of our life, and then the work that we were able to do. Because Jeff, before investing, you were a very active entrepreneur, and it's where could you do that work? Like, what was the market that you were servicing? The main reason why I immigrated to US was that understanding that the closer I am to Silicon Valley, the better I will do, and I can do the same work. It's just who are the people that I know, and can I work with this group of people versus that group of people? And then the other big problem for me was it was easier to immigrate to US than actually receive money in the country I was because of all the financial regulation, how you do remittances, how do you report them to local authorities. Then, you receive $1,000 wired in your bank account. You need to explain what it is for. Are you, foreign spy? What are you? Why are you receiving this money from outside? So that's really where I bring up medium of exchange. It's like sats must flow between us. And we must be able to transmit value to other individuals and free them from whatever are the chains that they're in, because you look at BTC Pay Server as a project, numerous crowd funds. There is one that's active right now that's happening for Palestine, where people are sending Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin is being turned into meals for people or medical help for people. We had another crowdfund that used BTC Pay Server for NSARS in Nigeria, where they were fighting back. Feminist Coalition was fighting back against police brutality. And if you transmitted money over banks, that money was frozen. Then they brought up a BTC Pay Server instance crowdfund campaign and raised over $2 million that then allowed them resources to push back against the oppression they were experiencing. So medium of exchange, yeah, definitely. I've been on a little mission during last year where if it's a Bitcoin conference, it has to accept Bitcoin payments. Working on Bolt cards, Lightning. So excited about all of that, and yeah, there we go, free Ross.
Thank you for this awesome Bolt card. And I don't know if people can see this on the stream, but it's got an amazing laser eyes thing there that when you tap the NFC, that's pretty incredible. I have the Trump one too right next to it, just for safekeeping.
Just to keep him honest that he, holds his promise to free Ross.
Day one, right? I think we're all, that's going to be the easiest way to test whether or not he plans on keeping other campaign promises, because this is a very low effort one for him to keep. A presidential pardon is like that. So day one or GTFO, but Jeff, I'm curious too from your perspective, because you and I have talked a lot about FETI. I've talked with Obi as well, and I think that this is another one of those things, that's approaching it from a different layer, right? And I think with a different type of solution than BTC Pay Server, which, like Rockstar, that's incredible how much they raised also. And I think, was it Gladstein who said, Bitcoin reaches people where fiat cannot. And I think that's such an important thing, that Bitcoin allows you to get money to places where literally you have no other way of getting it there. The fiat rails do not allow it. It is forbidden, or it is banned, whatever it might be, but these people can't get money any other way. And Jeff, I think what you guys at Ego Death through the financing of FETI are doing is really incredible. Could you talk about that a little bit, and just why you think that is such an important thing, especially at this time?
Yeah, so I'm going to take it broader than just FETI, but
Sure.
Because how things evolve and how things naturally evolve, and why people miss them and evolving. So if you take that to Lightning, or Lightning and Liquid as an example, then Lightning and Liquid early on in the integration. Let's go back a step. First, the only thing you could do in Bitcoin is hold it. You go pre 2017, you just held it, and what would that do in a market that you were getting rich by holding it, or the truth of the world was showing by holding it, and it was the only thing that could do that? What would it naturally do in the market? A whole bunch of other people would have new ideas to have a better Bitcoin, right? It would be just natural. And people would be so confused by that, and they would be so confused about technology versus protocol, what we're talking about. They would race to all these other things, and they would be easily fooled through the next hype in the scene over and over and over. And there'd be willing participants willing to take their money to be able to do that. And I'm saying that that's all bad. Inside that, there were some trying to be good actors that misunderstood technology as well, or protocol versus technology as well. and tried to improve upon Bitcoin in a different version. Let's use privacy as an example. Privacy coins, knowing full well if you had an open, decentralized and secure that was open, that if a state saw that eventually they would attack those people, which would be very important to be able to solve. It's just the way where you solve it. If you sacrifice decentralization and security for privacy, then it fails. So they didn't understand that it had to be built in layers. They also didn't, and in Lightning as an example, you couldn't use it as Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. And you could actually even, I don't so much, but you could forgive the people that said big blocks and the risk of centralization, because they also knew that it needed to be an even exchange, and it needed to do more than 5 to 7 transactions a second. So you could be on one side or the other. You could either say, you're all terrible people, we were right, or there was a piece of the nuance in the question, in the thing, and it was just the way it was solved. It needed to be built in layers. That makes sense? So now Lightning comes out, Liquid comes out, a whole bunch of different tries on the on the base layer to integrate that into a payment layer with a different trade-off that was way more safe and secure for everybody, because it used the decentralization and security into a different layer trade-off. What would that look like at first? What it would look like is a hobby network, a whole bunch of cryptographers who understood Bitcoin deeply and wanted to do it themselves. And then what would that look like to the market? That would look like Lightning not always working, because you'd have these channel locks. And then the market would say, this doesn't work, right? Let's build a different L2 that we centralize and it'll work. So it would be just totally natural as all of the entrepreneurs were building better and better and deeper tech in layer 2 to be able to resolve that problem onto the second layer. And so where Bitcoin transactions right now on Lightning and Liquid, they're approaching 90 to 95%. I know on Breeze, it's 90 to 95%. And payments need to work 99%, 99.999%. And then they flip everything, right? So you have an extractive system that charges between 2 and 4% in the US for every transaction anybody ever does. It just it's a sucking sound out of all of, not just the inflation, but you have another tax through all of the centralized organizations that are mandated to steal from you. And then you have a different system that is approaching now a rate that you can move that moves, instead of paying for transactions, you could get paid for transactions. So the incentives are about to flip. And the incentives, where do the incentives first flip? They first flip in places that are furthest away from the monopoly, like Rockstar was just saying, right? That need this technology, this freedom tech, so desperately, because they're paying a way higher rate, and if they don't have it, they're going to be killed. So they're going to use this, and you're not going to stop this. It's exploding. It's exploding at such a high rate that people don't know, because they're measuring it in the US and how fast it's exploding. And then you carry that into FEDI and what they're doing. And it's still very early. Bugs, hard to set up your own federation. But we've already resolved the challenge of essentially free banking for the world. Everybody can be their own bank on FEDI. You can, and then in that bank, you have complete privacy and anonymity, and nobody who's even running the federation can see anything that you're doing. So these pieces of technology are so powerful, and they build, and then other pieces of watch what Simple Proof is doing. Watch what Simple Proof did in the Guatemalan elections. They had a county in the US that used Simple Proof to have election integrity just now. It was extraordinarily successful. And so that's going to move into, and Rockstar already said this, the truth is being set free around the world. We're early in that cycle, but all of this technologies builds back on top of it, and all moves. And because these are pieces of protocols, they're not owned by a company that then is going to impose their tax on everybody. They're interoperable, and the speed of development expands, and what's possible expands by opening up Nostr, FIAT, BTC Pacer. All of these interoperable pieces together create, some entrepreneur is going to say, I can use all of this stuff. I don't have to build a development team to use all of this. It's all just native. And I can create something that creates tons of value for a new market out of this without any cost. Just moving.
Yeah, and as someone that's outside of FETI, if I can also approach it a little bit more technically, what's most impressive for me is that it's a multi-sig in which you participate with your key. So what Jeff was saying about communities, I just imagine, these little nodes around the world where people group up together. Okay, I am a key in multi-sig, and the Bitcoin that I'm holding, and just, I have HODL as a use case. But now if I join it with other people's Bitcoin and we create a hub, a node, a multi-sig in which we all participate, suddenly, we can do payments, we can do remittances, we can do, community chat hub. From that hub, one of the best use cases for me of FETI was during Bitcoin Atlantis. There was a federation, and if you join that federation, you could receive sats in that federation. You can use sats from that federation to zap people on Nostr. Suddenly it's a hub that provides services, and to me, that's the biggest promise of FETI, is like you give technology to empower individuals and allow them to do things that they individually couldn't do.
And
Rockstar,
maybe
I was just Madeira. Speaking of that, we were all there, right? We were all there in March. In March, there were, I think, 26 companies in Madeira using Bitcoin, accepting Bitcoin. And that was up because you had a groundswell, kind of a ground game, kind of anticipates into of the conference. You know how many companies now, when I was there last week? 134.
What's the update?
Wow.
134. It's only been, it's only been 6-7 months. It's exploding. People are, so you have, and this is being used every day. It's being used, more and more businesses, more and more people are using it. It's remarkable to watch. And how did that happen? It happened from a person in Madeira, Andre, reaching out to say, "Hey, I want to bring Bitcoin to Madeira. I think it's important for my country." And through that conversation with President, conversation with me, conversation with many of us here, to be able to start this and kick this off. And and now if you look at what Andre has done and what he's doing and the number of Bitcoiners who have moved there and the different things, sovereign engineering, what's coming out of sovereign engineering would blow your mind. I just spent a day with a cohort on their demo day, and some of this stuff is early. It's probably not the right time to be able to announce it right now, and some of this stuff, but it's all interoperable with the protocols that I described, and it makes everything easier and easier and easier. And so it's just when you're in the system, you want to spend more time in the system. You see when you see what's coming, you're just really inspired by all of these people building.
Yeah, and it comes so suddenly. I don't know, Walker, I'm curious about this. How much do you think BTC-based server, like all the different instances we have around the world, have processed in USD volume in the last 7 years.
Man, you're putting me on the spot with a prediction there.
Yeah.
Well, I guess not a prediction, just a guess. I'm gonna guess. I mean, you've already told me just one instance of a fundraise was 2 million. I'm gonna guess it's another order of magnitude, or probably 3. Or I'm gonna guess. Are you in the hundreds? Billions? How much are we talking here? I don't want to make a jackass of myself, Rockstar, so save me the embarrassment, please.
No, well, those watching, they can reference this conversation maybe in a couple of weeks when one of our case study comes out. But we have had numerous case studies that would show, tens of millions of dollars in volume. So what Jeff is saying about it's crazy for me, even as someone that has been part of the project for the last 7 years, to see all that volume, like all that economic energy that would otherwise need to wouldn't happen, or would happen in a lesser degree if there wasn't technology like BTC Pay server. So yeah, the best part of it is also, like I say, we don't know. We don't collect the data. But my guess, to also add to your guess, and then we can both look like jackasses, I would say over $1 billion, like in billions of dollars at this point. And watch the BTC Pay server account. We will do some announcements on that front.
That's incredible.
That's mind blowing. But just from the perspective of, like, it also shows how early we are. Like, that's a huge number, but that's also like a small number in terms of what it's going to process in the next 10 years, right? Or it's been around for 7 years, what it's going to process in the next 7 years. I think it's going to dwarf it, because, I mean, what I love about the time I spend with Bitcoiners is you realize that there are so many things going on behind the scenes that you can't possibly pay attention to all of them. As the average Bitcoiner, even as the average Bitcoin podcast host, you just purely, like, even just look at Nostr alone. You could spend all day, every day, just trying to keep up with all the projects that are being built on there and still not even come close to scratching the surface, right? But I think that's kind of this power of open source and of building on protocols, is that it allows for a pace of development and a widespread, not in any way centrally organized level of development that ultimately is just so much more efficient in terms of figuring out what the market actually wants than any centralized entity can be. Like, the centralized entity is going to have a head start because they've got the marketing budget, they've got the manpower, they've got the cheap fiat that they got at a really nice interest rate, but they don't have the collective intelligence of anyone out there in the world who wants to work on their thing being able to work on it because it is closed source. And so I'm curious if you guys kind of think, like, it's very easy, I think, if you look at just the NGU side of things, for people who are maybe just coming into this space, just getting themselves acquainted, to say, oh, maybe I've missed the boat. Like, this thing's already worth almost $100,000 per coin. I think we all agree that it's going to go a lot higher from there. But that's just barely even scratching the surface of everything else that's happening behind the scenes. And Jeff, to your point about when you have this whole decentralized, I don't even want to even call it an organization. You've got individuals around the world who are actively working in their own little areas to make things better, to make new products, to create new solutions for people based on actual problems in the real world that they want to solve, often for their own communities, whether digital or physical communities. I mean, do you think that we're, like, in terms of just general adoption awareness, it seems that we have not even gotten close to crossing the chasm yet, as they say. Is that fair to say?
We are not close. You could. So I believe that most people, even who are hardcore Bitcoiners, are pricing Bitcoin from the fiat instrument in number go up as a potential, as an asset within the fiat system. What I'm saying is it is not an asset within the fiat system. It is a base level protocol that is repricing the entire fiat system. Now, if you wanted to trade it as an asset and you think it's going to, then you'll likely trade it for fiat at some point. You'll buy houses with fiat at some point. And everybody should do whatever they want, right? Because that's what the free market is. And they will, and what that means is this will get distributed further and further, and it'll be centralized further around more and more people picking up sats. But in time, if I'm right, if this stays decentralized and secure, this is not an asset within the fiat system. It is a repricing of the entire fiat experiment globally. Everything, and by the way, in that world, why this is, and I might want to touch on something that you I should touch on because of the question. But in that world, prices fall forever. And the free market is crazy competitive because you have to give value to somebody else to stay in business. And while there's money, while there's margin in what you have, everybody attacks you and the margin comes down. So you have to, it's not just I have to give value once, I have to give value forever. Right? If I give value once, then I can attract some more capital. I gain more Bitcoin on my balance sheet. But if I stay there, if I only stay there, and I don't continue to innovate value for others, then my company is going to fail, right? And be replaced by somebody who does. You're competing with 8 billion people on the planet. All of their ideas every day. And today you're not competing with 8 billion people because most people don't know, but you will be competing with 8 billion people. And that means you're going to have an acceleration of deflation. You're going to have a staggering acceleration because as this merges with AI and everything else we're doing is staggering. And the only place you could measure that is from the energy-based protocol. We've only ever, in the history of humans, we've only found one thing, that we will sacrifice our own best interest, for our own best interest. We will trade with somebody we don't like, and we'll both win from that trade. That's called the free market. And so Bitcoin is the only thing we've ever seen that is the true free market. And most people are pricing that new free market from the old system. But what does that mean? So now, how are you funding it? There's two different types of models. Open source, which is actually funding from the centralized system because the money has to come from somewhere. So you have to say, I need a benefactor to be able to and maybe Jack, because he's such a really great person in the space, is always a benefactor, but he couldn't be a benefactor unless he had a company that was extracting money. It wouldn't work, right? So when you say open source, because those open source developers, they need to get paid too. They have families and such too. So where does the money come from? It has to aggregate. It has to come from somewhere. So you have this model right now, which is open source, and there's some really great people funding that. But you can't count on that forever. Because if you were an open source developer then that went away, what do you do? Right? So it's hard to, so you have to create real value in the free market. And you have to constantly create real value in the free market to be able to drive this. That's what's happening right now. And the people who are creating value are winning because they're adding Bitcoin to the balance sheet. And it doesn't even need to be a lot of Bitcoin to the balance sheet because Bitcoin is repricing the existing fiat system at 45 to 50% IRR. So that's the real rate of return in the world. That is the bounded by energy rate of return in the world. That means any investment that is under that is is losing value to the risk-free rate of return. Now, how do you beat that? You deliver value on top of it, and you collect sats on top of it. And it doesn't even need to be a lot. You could have a one-person company creating 10,000 sats a month, and in time, that's going to be a massive number.
Yeah, you can
Rockstar,
be an
I'm
account.
curious if you're. Yeah, go ahead.
You can be account on Nostr, as long as you generate 10,000 sats a month, you will be in good position. Yeah, I would offer a little different perspective of what Jeff is saying, because it absolutely is true. We've made so many improvements in every possible way, and then the value produced by those improvements in technology and organization in our work has just been captured by Cantillon effect and those that were closest to money printer. And suddenly we have this new system that's repricing everything. And is also what I love about Bitcoin. One side effect is that it's drawing the speculation out of assets like real estate. And I just hope that continues, because it will help with housing prices. And then stock market as well. It's an ultimate shitcoin casino. So the people that want to speculate, like, come on over to 24/7 market that Bitcoin is, and speculate on whatever is current rate of Bitcoin repricing, the world. Do that. The rest of us, we can focus on building and benefiting from all the activity that's happening when it comes to day trading. But for us, yeah, the focus is on the mission. Because when you look at people in Bitcoin and open source projects, what I love about BTC Pay Server, again, we talked about value that the project created, billions processed, but it's not something that we directly captured or priced, put a price tag on. We have created software at the start, like first 2 years in our spare time, because we believe in mission of Bitcoin, and that was our way of giving back. But even now, like it's only 9 of us in the team. Such a small team with such a big impact, and that's what really I try to emphasize whenever I'm talking, even like with young developers that are trapped in some kind of consulting job, closed source, system building, newest CRM that's going to die in 2 years. Once you switch to working on Bitcoin, working on FOSS, yeah, it's funny because it's true. Once you switch to working in open and contributing to a system like Bitcoin, then suddenly, like with BTC Pay Server first 2 years, there was absolutely no monetary gain. And people looking from outside, they were like, oh, you guys have it so easy. I tried to explain to them, I was like, no, we didn't have it easy. Our first big donor was Jack Dorsey and Square Crypto. Kudos to Mike Brock for suggesting that initiative, and then Miles Suter for being a big champion that we're doing a good work. But it's exactly that. It's like, what is your mission? And if you have a mission, if you have a calling, if you are creating and delivering value without even focusing too much on how you capture it, like that's what you should be doing. Thankful every day that I get to wake up and do that Bitcoin has freed me to do that. And I would encourage every developer that has any kind of spare time, look into FOSS projects, into Bitcoin, find where you can contribute. As Jeff said, there is now sovereign engineering. There are different programs that HRF is doing. So see how you can plug into that system, because it's cooperative system, and sure, you can look at it from perspective, okay, there will be 8 billion people and you will be in a way competing with them. But once you really focus on yourself and what you're great at, you're not competing with anyone. Like you're competing with yourself. Like the value that you have produced yesterday, like today, are you producing more value? And the best thing about it at the end is you are in a place where you should be. You know, we all need to get to that place where you're doing what's called work, but it's not really work. It's life's mission, or however you want to call it.
Yeah, Rockstar, when you just said that, you just think like you're just getting started, and you've touched a billion people or a billion in payments. So when you think about that, with 9 people just getting started, this is already free in the world, and it's already out there, and it's just starting, and it's going to expand. But like, how many people are you going to touch through your work? That's pretty powerful work.
It is incredible to see, and I think also I'd just like to throw out there that any sats that were zapped to me during the stream are going to go to OpenSats to support open source development, because I think that's as somebody who is not an open source developer, at least that's a small way that I can contribute, and we did that last time with the stream. And so thank you to everyone who has zapped this, because it's a small way that those of us who are less technical than the Rockstar dev can at least contribute in a small way. But this is something that gives me so much hope, and this is something that I feel very very privileged and very fortunate to have gotten to know so many incredible Bitcoiners, because Bitcoiners give me hope for the future. It gives me hope that you have people who have literally dedicated their lives and their significant intelligence to building on an open protocol, and to building things that may not get, like, they could be making more fiat somewhere else, surely, with any number of cushy jobs, or, Rockstar, like you and I had discussed previously, working 3 different contractor jobs at the same time, and, collecting 3 paychecks and doing great, but they're choosing not to. And they're focusing their time and their energy and their intelligence somewhere else. And it just feels like for anyone that's on this stream right now listening, that happens to be listening through a open decentralized protocol called Nostr, like, we're still so early to all of this. And it's important, I think, to take a step back and just appreciate that for a moment, and realize that we have so far to go, but none of where we have come so far, none of it is possible without open source developers building. Zap a dev, say thanks to a dev, and try to use, if you're not a technical person, use whatever voice you have to try and amplify the signal that these guys create with their code, because I think it's really important.
Thank you for that, Walker. On behalf
from the
of
bottom
all
of my
devs.
heart, man. Zap all the devs, absolutely. Well, guys, I want to, Jeff, I want to be conscious too, because I noticed things are getting a little bit dark around you. Do we? I think we've covered a lot here. This has been a high density conversation. I'm trying to think of the best note to sort of wrap up on a little bit, and maybe it's worthwhile just saying, what gets you excited about the future, and or what makes you hopeful. I think that a lot of people right now have a sense of generalized despair or worry about the future, particularly people that are trapped in the fiat hamster wheel. And they feel that, even, again, like, this is back to NGU a little bit, so I'll apologize, but they look at the price of Bitcoin going up and they think, that's more than I make in a year for a Bitcoin. I'm too late. I've missed the boat. There's these other cool, maybe they know about Nostr. Maybe they know about all the other cool things being built, like FETI, like BTC Pay Server. They know about all these things, but they think, you know what? I'm just too late. I'm too trapped in the fiat game to have this actually make a meaningful difference in my life. And like, what do you say to those people? What makes you hopeful? What should give other people hope that no, they're not too late, that we are still early, that there is still so much repricing, as you would say, Jeff, to go?
It's and it's not just repricing, it's the higher level of consciousness in the world caused by this, by working on an honest system. That's what's going to happen in time. It's and I think the thing that you're touching on here, why you respect so many people in this space, even people you disagree with on certain issues, but they make you better, they make you sharper. But underneath it all, they're all cooperating on an honest network. Might have different versions of our version to be able to do it, and that builds. Essentially, what you could say from that, Walker, is we're already living in the future, and we'd love more people to join us, but we can't make them join us. It's their job to understand that, and I empathize. If you're seeing the world like from your own fractal and you believe it looks like that. But it doesn't look like that for me at all. It doesn't look like you just described it all. In fact, it doesn't. I have massive empathy for people that are going through that. But for me, it doesn't look like that. It looks. I've already committed my time to this. It looks like abundance. It looks like it's in just, and it gets better and better all the time. It just feels amazing. So mostly, I just want to stay here, and I hope people join us. But each in their own time. They don't have to join us. They don't have. Eventually they will, because this system is imposing this on the world. But even for the people who don't join us, because the free market is deflationary, and all of what we're creating is that, they might not have as many sats. They might imposing this discipline across the world frees them too.
Yeah, it's better for everyone, and I think the biggest service we can do as people that have been in Bitcoin for quite a while, for me it's like over a decade, just talk about our own journeys and the moments that we have experienced, because I remember when I started contributing to BTC Pay server 7 years ago, more than 7 years ago, Bitcoin was getting like what, $20,000, and everyone was like, oh, it's too late. And then when it dropped down to $3,000, everyone's like, okay, it's dead. And it's eternal, sunshine of spotless mind. Like it's the same cycle. And then I guess I'm lucky enough to remember times when Bitcoin went all the way up to $210, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's too late. Now, I've missed the boat." And then it dropped to $70, and everyone was like, "Okay, it's dead." So that's what's coming now, where Bitcoin will get to over $100,000, and then maybe it crashes below $100,000, and it just goes back to what I said. It becomes another form of slavery. Is if you're watching that price and constantly thinking about your net worth, you've missed the point. Is like Bitcoin as protocol should be what interests you, and then through that protocol, how do you connect with the social network that Bitcoin is, that social layer? And going back to what Jeff was saying, how do you create value? Is it posting on Nostr that gets you 10,000 sats a month? Perfect, do that. They're like Corn DeLorean with his memes, you Walker with your streams. Developers that join and develop their own FOSS projects, but it's like you need to find that anchor that will speak to you and properly connect you. And yeah, I would encourage people to do that. And if us on this stream or previous stream can share our experiences and point you to the anchor, the better. Like I would actually even go to answer some of the questions that we have received if we have time after this, Walker.
Do you Jeff, do you have another couple of minutes? I want to be conscious
if there were some questions, I'm happy to probably let's give it 10 more minutes for me.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So I know. Okay, there were a lot of questions. Yeah, lightning round. Okay, so let's we'll keep them short. I'm looking at Rockstar's post right now because he's got a lot of questions on here.
Well, we have Ben Price, my nephew, who is founder of OpenSats, a Bitcoin person. He's asking, how do you come to terms with mistakes you've made along the way in your Bitcoin journey, if you made them, and move forward? And don't say sunk cost fallacy. Do you want to take this one, Jeff, or I should?
Why don't you go first?
Well, the way I've started to look at this, especially after all of our talks, Jeff, is that try to not look at them as mistakes. It's more like what went wrong and what can I learn from it. And the main point for me is someone hurt? Because as Jeff said in one of our conversations, and this is a sentence I can free here in public, is that he said, if I hurt you, I have hurt myself. And I have thought about that a lot, and that's what I do not want in my relationships. Like, I don't want to be a cause of hurt of anyone. So if I made mistake, the way that I first need to know about my mistake and what happened, and then what's the hurt that's been caused. And third step is simple. What do you want me to do? How do I fix this? And if you establish this framework, very quickly you will get to the truth much faster. And then you will also avoid a lot of situations, because sometimes people will blame you and they will be like, oh, you made this mistake, that mistake. And not all people are well-intentioned. There are people that will blame you for stuff and accuse you of mistakes as a way to control you. So if they cannot describe the hurt that you caused and the action that you should take, that's usually a hint that they want you in their servitude. So yeah, that's my framework for approaching mistakes and, most importantly, fixing them.
Mine's a little different, and I wrote about this in the book. I said intelligence is error correction. And since that book, a lot of people ask me, then what's wisdom? And I said a lifetime of error correction. And we make mistakes. The only moment that matters right now is right now, the moment I'm spending with you guys right now. And all of my mistakes and successes brought me to this moment right now. But I can't change the next moment. I can only change this moment. So I try to be present in that moment. And then if I make a mistake, or if I've done something where I think, that's interesting. Why I talk all the time about my own hypocrisy in Bitcoin, spending all my time in fiat world while I'm telling everybody to buy Bitcoin, that was a huge mistake. And admitting that mistake freed me to be able to free my time. And I could live in a hypocrisy. I could live there and pretend to hide that mistake. But the only person I'd be harming is me. And so if you take it even back further, that's why I said so much gratitude for all of the people who went before me and created all the things here. If I go back to 2015, all of the people who were screaming about Bitcoin, and I was one of these people in the matrix, who thought they were crazy. Not so much, but I remember my development teams telling me, do this, and I was just too busy to look. So yes, I made the same mistakes and a whole bunch, and you think those are some? We make them all the time. We all do, right? The part is, if you're looking this is a really simple, seemingly simple, but way harder to do. I think it'll make sense when I say it. We take credit for all the good things in our lives, and anything that's not working, we blame somebody else. And then when we look at somebody else blaming other people for the spot in their life, we wonder why they can't see it. Isn't that interesting? So if you know that that's true, then you are responsible for everything. Your frame of reference creates it all. And so you should take accountability for every single thing, because you choose all your time.
And Jeff, I think you just dropped, I don't know if we can even bring up another question after that, because you just dropped a lot of wisdom there that I think is going to have a lot of people thinking. That's really excellent advice. And it is kind of funny. I think we're all guilty of this, right? Exactly what you said, that we'll think we are very self-aware, but then not be self-aware at all when it comes to evaluating ourselves and the mistakes we've made in reference to other people whose perceived mistakes from our side we see as so obvious to us, not realizing that we are in fact doing the exact same thing. And unless we're conscious of it, unless we try to really admit it and say, you know what, yeah, that was wrong, I could have done better there, I could have done something different, we're not going to get better. But the point you made about, all of those mistakes have brought you right here to this moment, I think that that's such a beautiful point. And I think that's something that everyone can agree on, because I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, but somehow they've all brought me here to be talking with Jeff Booth and my uncle Rockstar on a live stream on a decentralized protocol where people are zapping, and those zaps are going to open source devs. I mean, that, like, if you'd told me that in 2019, I would have said, I literally have no idea what you're talking about. I literally cannot even comprehend that. But somehow all of those little, mistakes and broken roads lead to somewhere really amazing if you're willing to accept them. But sometimes acceptance is that's the hardest part. But Rockstar, I'm not sure if there's any other questions you want to cover, but I don't know how we top that one. And we covered some of them about strategic reserve and whatnot. But go ahead.
We're going to organize another one that's exclusively Q&A, and in the meantime,
perfect.
Let's close it down. Protect Jeff from the dark, and
yes,
build better protocols together.
Thank you. It was so good doing this with you guys. Love you both.
Sending much love to both of you as well. This was a treat. Thanks to everyone on the live stream. I'm going to shut this live stream down now. And that's a wrap on this Bitcoin Talk episode of the Bitcoin Podcast. If you are a Bitcoin-only company interested in sponsoring the Bitcoin Podcast, head to bitcoinpodcast.net/sponsor or send an email to hello@bitcoinpodcast.net. If you are enjoying the Bitcoin Podcast and find it valuable, give it a boost on Fountain, a 5-star review wherever you're listening, or better yet, share this show with your network so more people can learn about Bitcoin. Or don't. Bitcoin doesn't care, but I sure do appreciate it. You can grab links in the show notes to watch or listen to this show wherever you get your podcasts, or go to bitcoinpodcast.net/podcast. And you'll also find the links to follow me and the show on Nostr and on X. Bitcoin is scarce. There will only ever be 21 million, but Bitcoin podcasts are abundant. So thank you for spending your scarce time to listen to the Bitcoin Podcast. Until next time, stay free.